Welcome to Epic Begins with One Step Forward, the podcast that reveals how to plan, achieve, and enjoy the journey of creating epic results in your life, business, health, and relationships. Here's your host, best-selling author and motivational speaker, Zander Sprague.
Hello, epic people, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward. I'm your host, Zander Sprague, and today I am so honored to be joined by Esther Avant. Esther, tell us who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much for having me. I am a long-term, really health industry veteran. I've worked in the health industry for 20 years, everything from personal training, weight loss coaching. I own an online business and now branching into leading workshops and giving speeches about breaking down the barriers to better health. I'm also an author, a best-selling author, and a podcast host. I'm a Navy wife. My husband's actually about to deploy, and I have a son who's in kindergarten. So we have lived all over. We've really kind of crisscrossed the country and the globe, everywhere from Hawaii to Germany over the last 15 years, and I've kind of done all of my things in the midst of all of the military things.
Wow. Well, thank you to your husband for serving. That is awesome. Thank you to you for supporting him. I'm sure at times it's been challenging, especially with a small child.
Yeah, there are moments. Usually in hindsight, you look back and you're like, that was pretty tough. When you're in it, you're just like, well, all we got to do is get through it one step at a time. Yep.
Absolutely. So health and nutrition, the last 20 plus years, what brought you to be interested in all of that?
Yeah, it's funny. Actually, at the time, it was the movie Office Space, which came out when I was in high school and starting to think about colleges and picking a major about that. So there was a scene in the movie, which now that I've watched it subsequently, I realize I've totally misremembered the whole thing. But at the time, there was a scene where one of the characters asks what you would do if you had $1 million. And I had just discovered working out at the YMCA, and I thought that was fun. I was like, well, I guess if I had a lot of money, I would just want to work out all day. So I ended up majoring in exercise science and went to Boston University. And it was in those college years and immediately post-college that I realized becoming a trainer, I was in the gym a lot, but I had very little time for my own workouts.
Yeah.
So my career has sort of unfolded as a combination of helping other people and also helping myself, which then in turn has helped me be better equipped to help others.
Absolutely. And congratulations on also being a best-selling author. I think
Thank you.
Great. I too am a best-selling author. It's a really cool thing to say. What is your book about?
My book is called To Your Health, A Lifestyle of Health, Happiness, and Confidence. And it's really everything I've learned over the last 20 years of helping people lose weight. I have seen the discrepancy between what people want and what they think they need and what they actually need in order to be successful long term. So the book is a roadmap that provides both of those things. Everybody wants to know, the best foods for weight loss and the best exercises for your bat wings and things like that. We want to know the tangible, the tactical, like what should I be doing stuff. So the book includes that, but it also is a deep dive into the other components that we need, how to surround ourselves with support and normalize the lifestyle that we're trying to live.
Yep.
And how do we start thinking about our health differently? How do we approach building habits out of the all or nothing approach that we tend to take? How do we do it differently so that it actually sticks? It feels livable and the results that you get last long term. So it's really intended to be almost like a companion that
Right.
you, as you're going through the book, it's not this kind of rah-rah, get you really excited and then send you off on your own, but more so as you're reading, you start implementing the things that you're learning so that you feel like you're getting guidance, you're taking it one step at a time so that by the time you finish the book, you are already seeing results and you're working on developing the confidence to know that you can continue.
Absolutely. And I have to say my own personal journey, it took me quite a few years to realize that I can't eat like I did when I was 16, no matter how much I wanted. I
Uh-huh.
mean, I could, but
Not without
instead of
consequence.
not gaining weight, I found that I was gaining weight.
Uh-huh.
And people say, "Oh, lose the weight." I sometimes feel that it just gets temporarily lost, but somehow finds me again.
Yes.
I'd love to lose it. I'd love to leave it way behind, but somehow it always seems to find me.
Right.
It's
I've
like a
heard people
terrible
actually
game of
use the
hide and seek
word.
where I am not a good hider.
Yes, I've actually heard people transition to using the word release weight,
Yeah,
because release, you're letting it go with no expectation of finding it again. Whereas, yeah, you lose something, you're trying to get it back.
yeah. So, and I think you're right that finding what works for you, and it does tend to be, oh, okay, I'm going to do, this diet. I'm totally cutting out carbs and sugars and whatnot. My own experience is that doesn't long term is not a sustainable lifestyle
Right.
because you do end up going, I'd really like a piece of bread, or I'm someplace and I don't have any other option. I am hungry, but I don't have. And I also have found that the foods I should be eating, frankly, do not taste nearly as good as the epically good food that is, come on.
Yeah.
Would
I
I
mean, there's an
choose?
entire industry devoted to making these processed foods delicious so that we overeat them and buy more. That's we're up against a pretty big machine in that regard.
There is, but even if you're going more, uh, let's say not processed food, but you're still trying to eat, in my opinion, a delicious steak is always preferable over roasted broccoli.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I've come around to liking broccoli. I learned that you know, how to cook it so that it does actually taste pretty good. Used to hate broccoli. It's not my favorite, but I'll eat it. But again, ooh, broccoli or steak? Yeah, I'll take the steak because it tastes better, but it's not as good for me. And obviously, there's a deep seated biological thing that we're all fighting. Okay. A million years of evolution says, hey, yes, you want stuff that has some fat because it's you. We don't know when you're going to get it again.
Mhm.
So the difference is we get it again in 4 hours.
Exactly. Yep.
Not like, oh, it's been a whole week since I actually had some protein. So,
Right.
but how do you help you? We're laughing about this. I'm trying to make light of it. But how do you help your clients? Because it's a mind shift as much as it is whatever. There is a mind shift that has to happen about your relationship with food.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, and one that a lot of people overlook is reminding yourself that you're making choices. No one is making you, or no one is going to make you do one thing over another. And I actually think that's a really empowering thing to remember, because we all, just by having human brains, have those moments of kind of toddler tantrum where it's just like, I don't wanna. I know it's good for me, but I don't want it. And reminding yourself that you actually don't have to.
Mhm.
You are choosing to because you want the result of having done the thing, or having done the thing, for long enough that you see a change. But it's all choices. You could just decide, I do not care about my health. I'm going to eat whatever I want, whenever I want, in whatever quantities I want. I'm going to, you know, move or not. I just don't care about what will make me healthy. I'm just going to do whatever indulges my immediate, pleasure.
Sure.
You can do that. The reason that you're not is because there's something more meaningful than that to you. And I think anytime you're faced with a choice, reminding yourself of that. I don't have to choose the broccoli. I want to choose the broccoli for, whatever reason. Same thing with,
I don't think I would actually ever say that, but that's
but you could train yourself to remember that you actually don't, like, you never need to eat broccoli. There are plenty of healthy people that exist that never touch the stuff.
no,
You
I
don't
get
need to
it, but
force yourself into a certain box So I think that's one piece of it. But also, we have a tendency to kind of live in extremes where we tell ourselves, well, either I'm doing this or I'm doing that, instead of I can find a combination of those two things, meet myself in the middle and find what works for me. Where I
And
really
it's
like steak. I don't want to picture a life without it. I'm going to continue to eat it. And I'm also going to add a vegetable to my meal a lot
right.
of the time. We can find that middle ground.
Yes, I can have steak, but I'll only have it twice a month or something. And you said a small word which is really important when I talk about people on their epic journeys, because you're right, we tend to have very uh tunneled singular vision, and we forget that important word, and. There's not or, there's and. I'm on my epic journey and I'm still doing, you know, I want to build my nutrition business. And in the meantime, I need to have a job that's helping pay the rent because I can't, I can't
Right.
do that. And
Right.
with food, I mean, food is look, I love food. I'm the first to admit that I really I don't think about fruits and vegetables. I think about the protein first because vegetables get in the way of the protein. Let me eat all the
Protein's
protein
very
I want.
important. So it's solid
It
that that's
is,
a
but
priority for you.
like anything, moderation.
Hmm.
Like I'm in my 50s. I do not need 10 ounces of steak
Right. Right.
anymore, right? This whole size of your palm. I mean, I got big hands, so I'm kind of lucky. Your hand might be decidedly smaller, so you look at it and go, "Oh, the palm of my hand." Now, I go, "Yeah, I can lay that whole 12-ounce steak in my palm. Most of it's in my palm, you know? I'll fold it up, so yeah, oh yeah, it'll
Right.
fit in my palm."
Exactly. Squish it a little bit.
But yeah, I mean, it is interesting, and I've worked hard on that mind shift of my relationship to food to say, "Yes, I want to eat less of something, but I can have it occasionally."
Hmm.
Yeah, I've done all kinds of wild stuff where I was really watching I was counting all the macros
Hmm.
and oh my gosh, I'm almost up to all of my carbs that I'm supposed to have for today. And what do I do? But sometimes just take it. What I found is, let's say I'm at a party and I'm like, but I don't want the potato chips or the tortilla chips or whatever. But I feel like, oh man, I really want one. I'll have one or two, honestly, get the taste in my mouth. But then versus like absolutely not. And then I'm on the way home,
Yes.
go eat a whole bag of chips. That's sort of like, yeah, give yourself a little taste. If you really love dessert, but you're like, I ate a lot today. I don't really need take a bite of cake. You'll be okay. You're not gonna like, hit maximum density. But
Yeah.
it does self-control is a big part of it.
Yes. And I think that comes from meeting yourself where you are. And I think part of why it can be really hard to make nutrition lifestyle changes is because we picture this kind of end vision as we're completely different people. We've overhauled everything, and that's really unappealing. So we don't even start to go down the road. But the reality of it is there's so many opportunities to be a little bit healthier than we have been. And all you need to do is take that first step. What is one small thing that you can fathom changing? And once you're there, the next small step either reveals itself or feels a little bit more doable. And with time, you can look back and see that you have really made a lot of positive changes, but you've never felt like it's been too much at once. And I really love your emphasis on coming up with parameters for yourself. I don't think most of us do well following rules that other people put upon us, but I do think our brains like having some structure and something to kind of hone in on. So when you tell yourself, I can have this much, or I can have it this often, or I can have a little bit, you're constraining your choices a little bit, which helps eliminate the overwhelm, but you're still giving yourself some autonomy, which feels good in the moment and kind of eliminates like the rebelliousness of if I can't have it now, I want it more.
Right. And absolutely, I talk about the importance of structure in whatever your epic journey is, but we'll focus on weight loss. Structure is so important. Psychologically, structure makes us feel comfortable. And generally, we want to feel comfortable. And as adults, somehow we go, oh, no, 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 I don't want any structure. But the fact of the matter is that, and this is my opinion, I don't have any study behind it, but it's my, working with people for the last 2 decades. Not having structure, we kind of flail around. I know
That's exactly the word I use too.
yeah, as an entrepreneur, if I don't have structure in my day, I don't know, hey, I'm doing this at this time. There's 100 things I need to do, but if I don't create structure for myself,
None of them get done.
or half of things get done, right? And it's funny, we're talking about exercise. I rediscovered that I'm structure boy. I like structure. And it's when I decided that I wanted to run a marathon and I joined Team in Training, which is the fundraising side of
Mm-hmm.
Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And I was like, I signed up first for a half marathon because I was like, okay, let's incrementally. And they handed me a training schedule. And all of a sudden, that monumental task of running 13.1 miles got so easy.
Yes.
And
Because
I'm
then
like,
it's just a matter
oh
of
my
showing
God,
up
it's
and
so
doing
easy.
the
I
thing.
look at the thing, go run for 30 minutes, no problem.
Yes.
Then I was done for the day. I didn't have to worry about like, oh, I've done my training. On the weekend, go run 6 miles. Not saying that was easy, but still do it. Another thing that you mentioned that I think is really important, I talk about it. People who listen to the podcast all the time are like, oh my God, here come more marathon analogies, but they are really important, which is
Yes.
waypoints along the way. I was fortunate to be able to run 10 halves, 4 fulls, and a 50K ultra. I'm not running as much these days or really at all. I'm riding my road bike, but mentally, 26.2 miles is a really long way. And I was fortunate to run the 2014 Boston Marathon. I did not
Oh, that's amazing.
I did not time qualify. I want to be really
Well,
clear.
because those are damn near impossible.
But yeah, no doubt. And I have a funny story at the end of this little thing. But when I started to run the marathons, I'm like, I got to break this down to be achievable. And this applies to weight loss also. Have goals along the way, waypoints, because you're like, okay, if I can get here, we were talking about setting, I'm only going to have steak twice a week. Twice a month, right? No problem. You're like, oh, I get to have steak this coming Saturday. Okay, yeah, I can make that. Along the way, my first goal was 13.1 miles because now I'm halfway through. Then it was mile 17 because I have single digits. I got 9 miles left, single digits left. Then it was mile 20. Then I'm like, okay, now I can start to count down the miles.
Mm-hmm.
I've only got 3 more miles to go. Now, sometimes that felt like a really long way, but it made it much more bite-sized. I call it my pizza analogy. We tend to eat pizza one slice at a time. Unless, of course, there's a teenage boy around, in which case you're stuffing in as much as you can, as fast as you can, because if you hesitate and you slowly eat it and chew it, you're not going to have any pizza, period. I know because I was a teenage boy and I did that. Yeah, no, I think you're right. Structure makes us feel comfortable. There's psychological, that's why we're like, step out of your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is structure where you know how things are going to go, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned having a son, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's 6.5.
Okay. When you first have a child, any sense of structure, it's like a little cute that you love very much, but time terrorist comes into your life.
Good term.
And things that seemed so easy before, like taking a shower, all of a sudden you're like, 12 hours went by and I still didn't get my shower and I could have done it really quick. I don't know what happened.
Right. Yep.
So, how do you help your clients and what do you do for yourself for creating that structure and having structure become part of your habit? Because you talked about habits and habits are really important, but they seem hard to build.
Yeah. I think it's important to take note of how you think about structure because a lot of us really resent it. And, I have one client in mind who has a really demanding, Monday through Friday job. And almost all of her time is spoken for. She's in meetings. She doesn't really have any control over her schedule. It's all very regimented. And as a result, the pendulum swings the other way on the weekends. And she's like, I want no structure whatsoever because I need to kind of try to make up for how structured I just was over the past week. And for a long time, she really struggled with the weekdays felt pretty easy because she would, work out at the only opportunity she had. She would
Right.
eat what she brought to work. It was pretty easy to kind of stay focused. And then it would all go out the window on weekends when she would wake up late and just kind of, laze around the house and at some point get kind of hungry, but then it was already mid-morning and then it would throw off all her other meals. And it just like, they just felt like an unorganized disaster. And we had to sort of work through her feelings about having some structure on the weekend because initially she was just like, no, like very resistant. This is the last thing I want. And we, over time, helped her see that structure doesn't need to be rigid. We're talking about putting some kind of anchors in place
Mm-hmm.
that help you do the things that help you feel good and help you reach the goal. So maybe it's not that you continue to wake up at 5 a.m. like you do Monday through Friday. Of course you want to sleep in. Your body wants the extra sleep. You should do
Yeah.
that. So maybe your kind of structure is within an hour of waking up, I've had something to eat and I've moved my body for 10 minutes.
Yep.
You're then anchoring that morning to a semblance of structure. And then you have maybe a couple of those other touch points throughout the day. Something that a lot of clients are really successful with is kind of time ranges where I think we've all experienced the early part of the day getting away from us. So our first meal is late and then we're not hungry for the second one, but then we're really hungry before
Yeah.
dinner. And then and it just like deteriorates. So if we say, all right, by 10 a.m., I want to have eaten breakfast sometime between noon and 2:30, I want to have eaten some sort of lunch.
Yep.
And that way I know if I do those things, I'll be hungry for dinner at a reasonable time. That's what structure can look like. It's not making Saturday and Sunday look like, oh, every 30 minutes I'm accounting for exactly what I should be doing.
Yeah,
I
no,
have like forced
absolutely.
downtime, but that's more realistic and I think more helpful to realize you can have the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. And I guess being a mental health professional and I did my internship in school-based. I was doing middle school and high school
Mm.
students, right? And one of the things that I realized was up through high school and really somewhat in college, but less so in college, but up through high school, structure has been your friend. There has been,
Mm-hmm.
where you need to be first period, second period, third period, all the way for however many class periods you have in your school. And in fact, after the first week of school, you don't actually get very worried about how to get from one class to another. That's all structure. When you drive to the store, you know how to get to the store. You're not actually really stressed about how do I get to the store. I love to use this example. Imagine you're like, I got to go to the supermarket. And you go out and you start making random lefts and rights, right? Oh, or if you're driving someplace new, now we all have GPS and it tells us where to go. I'm old enough to remember living in outside of LA and having the Thompson Guide, which was a yellow page size map. And you'd be like, all right, I need to get to here. And you're going from one page and then you go to the next page and see, and you don't know where you're going. And so it's really stressful. Why? Because there's a lack of structure. You don't
Mm-hmm.
know. And so when you're driving to the supermarket, you're thinking about, oh, did I forget anything on the list? There's a little autonomous, sort of automatic, like I know to take a left at this light and do this. But that does create a problem for a weight loss journey, whatever, which is we as humans tend to like structure, and we tend to have that tunnel vision I was talking about, right? I worked in the corporate world for 20 years. I drove to work the same way. And even though I talk about it and I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't often think about alternative ways to get to where I wanted to go. And on our epic journeys, there are multiple ways to get to our destination.
Mm-hmm.
And if we entertain that just because it works for you, maybe I need to modify that a little because it doesn't work for me. What I need to do is get up and within not an hour, but 30 minutes, have something to eat because I get hangry or whatever. Or even though I slept in, first thing I want to do is work out so nothing gets in the way of my workout. I get up at 5 a.m. Why? Because there's nothing that will get in the way of my workout. Seems to work well. It was hard when I started it. I was running in the dark, in the rain, in the cold, but I did actually come to really love that time. And I felt so much better. There's a saying in running that you rarely regret a day that you went on a run, but you always regret a day you didn't run. I love to ask people this question, my guests, which is in the book, I have this, the two important words are not yet, right? Have I reached my weight loss goal? Not yet. Sometimes you reach it faster, other times. But in your own life, what are one or two of your not yets? Things you've dreamed of doing or you want to do, but just it's not yet.
I love that, and that is one of my phrases too. Right now and not yet are two, and that's something that I have been working on instilling in my son. Is say, oh, I'm not good at this, and then I've done it enough times now that he'll pause and be like, yet, and I'm like,
Yeah.
but that's it. Is it's just that you haven't had enough time or enough practice, and I think that's so eye opening. The doors that open for you when you realize I can learn and do anything. I just haven't chosen to yet.
Yeah.
So one of the things, I have a second book that I want to write. I just haven't done it yet because I want to focus this time. My first book came out 6 months ago, and I really want to spend some time talking about it, marketing it, continuing to sell the first book before I add a second on. And I know that the skills that I'm developing in doing that now will only benefit me in the second book. So that's sort of a, in the next probably 3 to 5 years type thing. And the second one is I want to get paid to be a keynote speaker, and am actively pursuing kind of the pre-work for that. I've started booking local gigs and doing breakout sessions and things like that, really working on honing my message and making sure that by the time that does happen, I feel really confident in the message that I'm delivering. So that's another thing. My goal is to get paid for some sort of speaking related engagement this year.
That's
And
generally the idea, Esther.
exactly. And then keynote, potentially in probably, two-ish years.
Yeah. Oh, those are awesome. Not
Thank you.
yet. And I fully support them because I feel you on although I'm not writing my next book. I never thought I'd write 3, but somehow I did. And writing a book is a non-trivial. It's honestly, it's not just, oh, let me write the book. As you know, the editing process is in proofreading and stuff.
Yeah.
And I had professional proofreaders, but I had to read what they said. And I've said before, I joke that when my book actually came out, I didn't want to see it for about 3 months
Yes.
because I just reread my book like 7 times.
Yes.
And I'm like, I just, no, please.
Right. I know this is very good, and also I do not want to even look at it. Yep.
Yeah. I am tired of what I've said.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. It's interesting. I learned so much, when I first learned about your podcast. The writing process was, such an obvious epic journey from I have no idea what I'm doing to I'm going to set this goal anyway. I'm going to figure it out, to all the steps leading up to it, and just how many there are that, anybody can put words on paper and kind of brain dump and call it a book.
Yeah.
But to get it to a polished version that is published and that is actually worth reading and can change people's lives is a much different thing.
It
and
truly
you're
is an
absolutely right.
epic journey.
Yes.
Well, Esther, this has been absolutely wonderful. How can people find you, get a hold of you, get a hold of your book?
Yeah, thank you for asking. My website is esteraavant.com, just my full name. It has links to the book, which is called To Your Health. You can buy it wherever books are sold. I also host a podcast called To Your Health, and I'm most active on Instagram and LinkedIn if you'd like to connect there.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you so much. Truly an epic conversation.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. And I want to remind everyone that if you're ready to begin your epic journey, go to epicbegins.com. And very exciting, I have a TV show now. So if you would like to be a guest on my TV show, go to epicbegins.com, click on the link for apply to be a guest, and I'll see if I can get you on. As always, I want to remind people that epic choices lead to the epic life that you want.
Get your gift copy of the award-winning book Epic Begins with One Step Forward at epicbegins.com. That's a wrap on this episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward with your host, Zander Sprague, best-selling author, internationally acclaimed public speaker, and licensed professional clinical counselor. To make your next conference or event epic, send an email to Zander at zander@epicbegins.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Remember, epic choices, epic life.